in the morning for her.
Speaking of Rania, she and Jordan just did a great. Jordan Chariton, of course.
Everybody check out Status Quo.
Great
if you want actual news.
No, they did a great interview together the other day. I highly recommend people check.
So since Lulu's here,
Lulu sticker.
Everybody, be a Patreon.
Very important.
Be a Patreon.
We really
and if you guys can support the show.
Mm-hmm. It is very important, and we really do appreciate anyone who can pitch in. You start as little as $5 a month. It could go to $10, or if you're really feeling generous, $25.
It's fancy.
It is fancy.
It's not fancy.
It's not $1,000 a month, as some podcasts would like you to pay. No, we're trying to be a little bit more economically reasonable on our show. So if you can chip in, that would
really
be very,
helpful.
very helpful.
It is helpful. And
it is. And you get to see more of this lovely lady.
Look at her. She's literally smiling.
Who's the happiest
That's
dog?
Lulu smiling.
Lulu
smile.
Who's the prettiest girl?
Look at her smile. Lulu smile.
See? How could you? I mean, come on, guys. How would you not want to be a part of this process?
She's so cute.
It's a lot of fun. So before we wrap for the night, we do have one final story. We do have a bootlicker this week because we just had to get this guy up because he doesn't want to let up. And that, of course, is Byron Brown.
Go. So for people who don't know who Byron Brown is, he's the mayor.
Does anybody really want to know? Buffalo. Apparently, still the mayor.
Still the mayor. So this
soon to be
ex-mayor, right? Well, this is the thing. So for people who aren't following, because they don't follow Buffalo mayoral race, this is the Democratic incumbent. So he is a Democrat. He's been sitting there for, I believe, 30 years or some ridiculous amount of time. Now, he's been there a really long time, sitting there as mayor. And he just lost in the primary to a woman named India Walton, who is a socialist. And my understanding is that she won clearly. Yes. Like this wasn't like a question, like he's not debating the result. And so instead of stepping aside with any amount of honor and integrity, because he lost the primary in his own party, he is now running as a write-in candidate.
Oh, yeah.
And is seeking the backing of GOP donors, a la Chantel Brown. No relation that I know of, interestingly. But yeah, so this gentleman who is an incumbent Dem is sucking up to GOP donors, running as a write-in candidate, and instead of accepting his loss in the primary to India Walton. So this is somebody who just cannot let it go. And also in the city of Buffalo, my understanding is their commission, do they call it a commission or
city commission?
City or council? Okay.
City council.
Whatever.
The same thing.
They are now drafting new law, new rules, new stuff to create a city manager position to undermine the power of the mayor position, which is an elected position. A city manager position would not be elected.
No.
And they're actually doing all of these things to undermine the person who is democratically chosen by the people of that city. And quite honestly, people of Buffalo, you need to be out in the streets. This is unacceptable. It's not even like he's disputing the election. He's not disputing the election. They acknowledge the election. She won the primary. She will win the general because it's a blue place. It just is. The Democrat wins there. That's my understanding. Like, that's not the issue.
Yeah, this is really just a case of, and again, as much as I think he really is upset that he lost, I also think that the corporate establishment is putting him up to this. Like, they are trying every which way to stop India from winning this race.
She won the race. That's what's so frustrating.
Winning the general election.
Correct.
And so
he has to be a write-in.
There's two rules of thumb here. One, if somebody like India Walton takes over the city of Buffalo, that's really going to be a game changer for hundreds of thousands of people.
It is.
And it's also a game changer
for the state of New York.
For the state of New York, especially for something like the New York Health Act.
It is.
But on top of everything else, and maybe the signature issue of them all, because at the end of the day, most people don't think on a macro level. They always think on a micro level. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, and this is a much bigger problem on the Democratic side, the entrenchment.
They just won't let go.
Somebody like Byron Brown is probably created a lot of jobs for an entrenched class of people.
Friends and family and cronies.
And when he is no longer in power and India Walton is in power.
Who isn't cronies with them.
They're out of a job. They're out of let me rephrase that. They're out of a cushy job.
Well, they're out. They're losing. The gravy train is
correct,
closing for them. And they don't like the way that looks because she's not going to be on the take. She's a socialist. So her goal is to actually empower people.
I don't think people really understand how monumental of
It
a
is a big
victory
deal.
this
It is. It's a big deal. And look, I don't know what damage it'll do having him on there as a write-in. I don't know enough about their demographics and their elections to know.
Again, is it possible that it could cause a problem? Absolutely.
But you
don't
don't
take
think
anything
it is.
but you don't take anything for
No.
granted.
And that being said, the two races that we are right now kind of concentrating on are her race, which is November 2nd.
And the race that's down here, Florida's 20th congressional district.
And those right now are our priorities.
We'll see what happens with Nina next month, but
we don't know. There's an announcement, but even still, that wouldn't be until I think April or May.
That is correct. Well, April, but never. Well, you would assume
we're not making any assumptions.
No, we're not making any assumptions, and you don't want to do that.
Nina made an announcement the other day, like sort of a teaser. That come mid-September that she's going to have something to say. Now, and that could be a lot of different things.
It certainly could.
It could be a lot of things. Like, I'm not going to,
It could be the Hello Somebody PAC or something.
It could be a PAC. It could be that she is running again. It could be she's running for something else. It could be a lot of things. Who knows?
If she's running for anything, she's running for that seat. But that's a whole other story.
I don't know. David Dole did sort of like a prediction, like less like more likely, less likely, but and one of the things was going for the Senate seat that's going to be up. And that was his less likely. It was just funny. He went through and just for for shits and giggles, he wasn't really being serious.
Nina would have to be a sitting congressperson to run for the Senate in Ohio
and to run a statewide. And I honestly, just from what she's just been through, I don't think that. But hey. And if she did, I'd be totally supportive. But I don't think that. But could it be a PAC?
Ohio is a big, big state.
But it could be a lot of things. It could be an organization. It could be a PAC. Who knows? I know that it'll be awesome.
Bottom line.
Everything is awesome.
Bottom line is that there are a lot of Byron Browns around the country.
Oh, yes.
There are a lot of these entrenched representatives whose only intention is to use our elected offices to enrich themselves.
And their friends. Don't forget their friends and family.
It is.
Because a lot of them, what they do is that's how they hide their money is through their spouses, through different people's organizations, through their boyfriends, through whoever.
Yeah, it is. And it is. And it goes without saying that when it's one thing to have a very comfortable job. It's another thing entirely if your career is basically built around it. One of the things that we emphasize a lot is that politics is not supposed to be a career.
No.
It's supposed to be a term of service to your community.
And quite honestly, this is what people that are opposed to term limits talk about. I don't have a problem per se of somebody being a lifelong public servant. Bernie's done it. I mean, there are people that have been basically lifelong.
But he is the exception, not the
right.
rule.
And that's the problem.
Right.
And so unfortunately, most Congress people's approval ratings are well below what they should be to indicate that they would keep getting reelected if not for a problem in the process.
Correct.
So to me, that's the sign. If your approval rating, Bernie's is 80 something percent, it's ridiculous. Bernie has a very high approval rating amongst his constituents.
Correct.
If your approval rating is that high, then that indicates, yes, you should be winning reelection every single time. But when your approval rating is below 20%, and yet you keep winning reelection, that's a sign that the system is just not functioning as a democracy. So,
Correct.
And so I really don't have a problem with people that want to dedicate their lives to politics. I don't. But we would have to have completely fair, legitimate elections first, which we don't. And so given that we don't, to me, the fix on that, and term limits has its own problems too. This is why that's one of those things where I'm supportive of it. If the legislation was correct, I'd have to see. I'm not anti, but it's got problems too, because then you figure if somebody knows they're terming out, they can burn it all down on their way out the door, and they don't have to worry about reelection. So it's but when you're not accountable
anyway, because they live in gerrymandered districts. They do whatever the hell they want anyway.
I know. Well, that's the thing. So it's I'm saying I see both sides of that. So it's I support the idea of term limits, but we have to be aware that has its own pitfalls too. You don't want somebody sitting there in a Senate seat for a 6-year term that they don't have to be reelected to, and they have all these years to just sit there and do whatever they want and not be accountable.
Well, that's exactly
not that they're accountable anyway, but that's the problem.
That is the merit to the argument about why you do have term limits, on top of the fact that it's really, as again brings it all full circle, corporate special interest money is why we have the problems that we have. That's it.
It's ruining.
It's really
everything.
not that. It's not.